Hello again, I'm Rodney Reynolds and welcome to another video review. Today I'm looking at the Kingwin Mach 1 1220 watt power supply. What's included is the user's manual, plastic container for the modular leads, 4 thumb screws for mounting the power supply in the case, a power cord, and the power supply. The Mach 1 line of power supplies are currently available in wattages ranging from 520 to 1220. I'll be reviewing the 1220 watt model, which is more than enough power for even hardcore computer systems. Now, how is this wattage determined? Well, to understand that, you need to know what rails are. Rails are basically well-regulated transformers which convert domestic current into the voltages that your computer system can use. And there are essentially two different rails, the 3.3/5 volt rail and the 12 volt rail. In this particular case, the approximate maximum peak output of the 3.3/5 volt rail is 170 watts and the plus 12 volt rail is 1080 watts, which is essentially how the wattage of this power supply is determined. The 3.3/5 volt rail is responsible for the motherboard, memory, PCI cards, and so on, while the 12 volt rail is responsible for the hard drives, optical drives, fans, CPU, video cards, etc. Also, some might be interested to know the peak amps on each rail. Well, the plus 3.3 volt rail is 24 amps, and the plus 5 volt rail is 30 amps. Now, there are 6 plus 12 volt rails. The first 3 are 20 amps each. 4 and 5 are 35 amps, and the last rail is 20 amps. Note that all 6 plus 12 volt rails have a combined power of 90 amps. There are a couple of important things to remember when selecting a power supply. The first is wattage. Determine how much wattage you are going to require by the amount of hardware you will be installing. Generally speaking, a medium to high-end gaming rig would require a 500 to 700 watt power supply. For a hardcore system, select a power supply that's around 800 watts. If, however, you are building an extreme gaming rig with a top-of-the-line multiple video card setup with lots of other hardware, get a power supply that's around 1000 watts or greater. Second, it should be at or above 80% efficient at typical load. The efficiency of this power supply is rated above 75% at typical load. Third, it should meet the latest ATX and other current standards, environmental directives, overvoltage, undervoltage, and other protections. This power supply meets all current standards. Fourth, I'd recommend choosing a power supply that has APFC. APFC, or Active Power Factor Correction, is something that also assists the power supply in being more efficient and therefore stable under load. APFC basically reduces total harmonics, corrects input voltage, and it allows for full input voltage range. Thankfully, this power supply has APFC. Fifth, there are 3 main certifications: 80 Plus, NVIDIA SLI, and ATI Crossfire. Many of today's high-end power supplies meet one or more of these certifications. This power supply is 80 Plus Bronze certified and NVIDIA SLI certified. Sixth, look for a power supply that uses Japanese capacitors. This ensures a much more reliable power supply than a power supply with low-grade capacitors. This power supply uses Japanese capacitors. Finally, get a power supply that has enough leads for your setup. Also consider a power supply that has a modular design because it reduces the cable mess inside the case. Considering that this is a 1220 watt power supply, it's not that long, but it still might not fit in some mid-tower cases and will probably not fit in most home theater PC and small form factor cases. It has a rough paint finish and a steel housing. They also include a temperature-controlled, quiet, blue LED 140mm fan, so the hotter the inside of the power supply gets, the faster the fan spins. The 140mm fan and the honeycomb ventilation ensures maximum cooling, so the power supply should remain cool in almost any environment. Here's the power cable connection and the power switch. While this power supply leads are not all modular, most of the required ones are already attached. Modular leads are fantastic because you only need to use the ones required for your particular setup, which reduces the cable mess inside the case, and this also looks great, as well as increasing airflow inside the case. The way that the modular leads get connected into this power supply is extremely unique. Notice that each modular connector has a number of pins in the center. This corresponds to the modular leads, so you can't mess this up. Just mate up the correct one, push it in, and screw it into place. Finally, have a listen to the 140mm fan. If you're looking for a fairly compact 1200 watt plus power supply that performs really well, and it also looks fantastic, has a modular design that's extremely unique. I love those modular connectors, by the way, because once they're attached, they will never become detached. Also, with this power supply, you have a very quiet blue LED 140mm fan. Overall, this is a 100% kick-ass product. Until next time, take care.